we have to end some of these repeated patterns, these lineage traits, these traumas, these things that are carried over and over and over, and was really spoken about a lot in my mental health training too. Intergenerational trauma, how traumas are passed down, how things are handed down,
Mm-hmm.
and how it is a choice for us to really say no in that moment. It ends with me. I'm not carrying this into the life of my children and the continuation of my lineage.
Welcome, sweet soul, beautiful heart. Welcome to Visions of Earth Rising, inspiring stewardship of the earth, creativity, self love, and healthy relationships. This is Juniper Reina Zarea, your hostess, with episode 102, Tending to Ourselves and Awakening the Divine Feminine, featuring Lauren Haug. Lauren and I explore living in right relationship with the earth, tending to ourselves with love, healing ancestral lineages, noticing patterns in nature and signs from animals, weaving ancient practices with modern psychotherapy, and so much more. Lauren Haug is a licensed practicing counselor who received her master's in counseling from Regis University in 2014. While pursuing her master's, Lauren also received a 200-hour certified yoga teacher certificate. Lauren has studied the body in depth and integrates yoga, shamanic healing, energy work, womb healing, heart awakening, and ritual into her private practice. Lauren is a Reiki Master, apprenticed under a flower essence practitioner, trained in womb awakening, and completed a water priestess course to help women embody their divine feminine essence. Lauren has traveled the world and experienced healing through many different cultural lenses. Divine reality is symbolic of the search for harmony, peace, and return to the Holy Spirit within. Her practice provides a healing space to explore the human experience and integrate its wisdom. As a mental health therapist, Reiki Master, water priestess, yoga teacher, and a channel for the divine feminine awakening, Lauren offers an option to incorporate each of these modalities into her treatment to bring about healing on multiple levels. Lauren's calling to step into her purpose as a healer came when she passed through her own healing. She began searching and experiencing a variety of modalities that shifted her mind, body, and soul. These tools and studies brought clarity to the importance of the ups, downs, ins, and outs we move through in life. Lauren felt called to bring this medicine forward, and divine reality was born. It's truly an honor to have Lauren Haug on the show today. Sweet listener, may these teachings touch your heart and your soul. Thank you for being here. I'll post any links that come up in the show notes. And now, without further ado, I give you episode 102. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Visions of Earth Rising. I am here with Lauren Haug, a beautiful spiritual awakening counselor who weaves in a variety of embodiment work and specializes in working with women. So, hello, Lauren. We're so glad that you're here.
Hi, Juniper. It's so good to be here, and I'm excited to talk with you today about all the good things.
There's really so much we can talk about. So we'll just dive right in there. And I'd like to start with the question, like, what really inspires you? What are you passionate about? What drives you to do the work that you do?
Yeah. I feel really inspired by the idea and the concept of working with women and helping women to really embody and embrace their fullest potential. I've always enjoyed working with women, and it's a fire and a spark for me that's just grown and grown and grown over the years, and through teachings and trainings. And yeah, that definitely really drives my purpose. I love in that work. I really feel like I'm working for the earth and working for the mother. And I'm a Cancer sun sign, so I do have a lot of motherly energy inside of me. And yeah, that really gets me going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, coming from the mental health field, you've done a lot of innovative work to really blend in some more ancient healing. Can you tell us a little bit more about your path to discovery there, and the how Western medicine, psychotherapy, counseling can go hand in hand with these ancient practices?
Yeah, I would love to. So it really started with mental health therapy for me. I always knew, even when I was younger, that I would be a therapist. I used to tell people that, and then when I got into my program, I really realized that there were pieces or aspects that weren't filling me up completely. And that was the focus specifically on the mental aspect of it, like the cognitive space, thoughts and things around that. I felt like it was just really missing something, and that it wasn't that we couldn't just work from the concept of the mental space. And that's when I began my yoga teacher training. And in my yoga teacher training, I was Reiki certified. And so I began to utilize other tools like yoga for opening up the energy channels in the body, Reiki along those same lines, right? And using your hands to open up, and using life force energy to open up the energy channels in the body. And I really started to realize how embodiment was such an important piece in our healing, and how disconnected we were already, and how much mental focus there was already in our society. So just so important that we really dive into the body when we are incorporating healing. And I wove these two together, and that's really what started it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of those Hindu teachings too really sung to my heart. And I know you traveled throughout, it was it Thailand to do your
Thailand for 13 months and India for 5 months.
Yeah, I knew you had a little bit of experience going to India too, which is so amazing. And so I'm sure you can resonate with how those teachings are so profound, and really help open up the energetic body. So
what are your favorite practices in your daily, your weekly, your monthly self-care, to come back to be home in your body?
Yeah, it's a great question. I love taking baths. So I took a 6-month water priestess immersion. I really focus on being around water, being in the water, drinking water, collecting spring water when I can. I focus on a lot of my practices for my women's studies too, like breast massage and womb massage and dancing. And then I incorporate yoga and breath work, and some sound too. I love how sound just really helps bring me back, and clear my energy body, invite in a new vibration. I have a little song bowl that I use, and then I also play a hang drum. So yeah, those are my favorite practices.
Working with so many clients, what are you noticing about the landscape of mental health today?
Mm. Wow. I'm noticing how there's really a level of transcendence for a lot of people right now. There's such huge transformation going on a collective scale, and so many people are having to really step outside of their comfort zones, step outside of their typical day to day, and see things differently, choose different career paths. I'm just really seeing how much transformation is going on, and it's actually a really profound time to be working with clients on the regular, and to see and experience these collective currents that people are really having to ride through and work with. And yeah, it's definitely a time of profound transformation. It's not an easy time collectively. So I'm doing the best that I can to really be there for people, and allow them to see this time in our history as a way to open up and think outside the box, and transform their lives into something that isn't in alignment with our old structures and our old systems, which I found to be very not in support of like a really full, rich life and vitality and health. And so I'm really wanting to help people transition and shift into stepping into a life of vitality, into a life of health, into a life of their dreams and their passions and their desires. So a lot of good like alchemical juice happening right now. Yeah.
Oh, such a
The
beautiful
juicy time
answer.
for sure. A time of like a lot of death, but a lot of transformation and stepping into new. So definitely a good time to to be in that awareness of, there are certain times in our life where things are going to ask to die off, and we have to really surrender those things over to the new. So I see a lot of that going on.
For any of our listeners who are identifying with what you're saying, what steps would you recommend that they take to have the support to really meet this transformation, this alchemical process head on and really make the most of it?
Ooh, yeah, such a good question. Getting quiet, I think, is the first step, and getting embodied and getting into deeper touch with who you are and what your dreams and what your aspirations are and what you really want to bring forward and create here. I see this as like a really opportune moment to step outside of our typical like 3D existence and to step into more of a creative, uh, like a creative explosion, right? Into like what you want for you. So to really like get in touch with some of these inner stirrings and passions and desires that want to come through and want to be birthed here.
What helps you connect with your creativity?
A lot of embodiment practices, and in particular, for me, I really will just drop into my womb and drop into my heart, and even just bringing that awareness there and inviting in, like calling that energy down to that space and turning those spaces on is enough for me to just get in touch with myself, with what I want to create that day, with my intentions for the day, with my desires. And yeah, so I see it as really just like kind of lighting the flames in those two places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so at least the tagline right now for this show is inspiring stewardship of the earth, creativity, self-love, and healthy relationships. So really love to come back to those four things. So we have a little bit on creativity there, but could you tell us some more about self-love,
Yeah.
self-care, and how to be your own best friend?
Yeah, totally. So what I always say is that self-love and self-care isn't as easy as like your typical, like, oh, I'm going to take a bath and then I'm going to get a massage and then I'm going to get my nails done, right? It's not, I mean, those are definitely good practices to have in there, but I feel like when you really enter into a practice of self-love, you're going to have to look at your life and you're going to have to look at all of the areas in which you're not loving yourself completely. The aspects of your life that aren't really serving you in the long run, that aren't really like feeding your health, feeding your wellness, and feeding your vitality. And to me, a true practice of self-love is saying no to those things that aren't in service of you, more than all of like the yeses and the goodies, even though I'm a huge advocate of those, and like those definitely get me through my day to day. But when you really want to step into loving yourself deeper, you have to say no to those things that aren't in service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing that stuck with me is how some of the self-care practices are actually things that have been marketed to women. So like going to get your nails done, going to pay for a massage, we could go on and on, going to have a spa day. Mm-hmm. Some of these things come back to keeping people in the role of consumer. Nothing wrong with going to get a massage or your nails done. How do women navigate and come back to their sense of truth, to their inner essence with the forces of advertising and marketing that are out there?
Yeah. Yeah, that can be an interesting road to navigate, right? I would say that, so are you just meaning like the women who fall into like the over consumer role, right? Like consuming, like, necessarily finding all these things outside of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
that that they put on outside of themselves, that they experience outside of themselves, and spending money towards that, when in reality a lot of that work is that inner work, right? That embodiment work, that soul searching, that yeah. Yeah, I see as how that can be a huge distraction, right? And how it can really be shown to us as like, oh, this is what we need, this is what will make us whole, right? and and it will never be able to amount to the depth of the inner work, or the depth of like the depth of getting in touch with your essence and with your soul. I see it as being sweet little ways that you can pamper yourself if you choose to. And honestly, like, the last time that I got a massage was probably 7 months ago. So it's definitely not.
For future listeners, we're still in the time of COVID.
Right,
Just
exactly.
FYI.
Yeah. So, definitely not something that I really spend money on a lot. For me, it's more of like, can you sit with yourself and do this embodiment work and do this soul search, and no matter what we do outside of ourselves, it will never add up to knowing who you are deep down. That foundation of that soul essence of you, and coming back, like I was saying earlier, just simply feeling into your womb or feeling into your heart, like the warmth and the presence and the comfort that I get from that, I will never be able to get from anything else.
How can we create a culture that's more supportive of inner work?
So in my imagination, I see like community with daily morning practice, and like sitting in quiet, and honoring, like the tea we drink in the morning, and the breakfast that we have, and the foods that we put in our body, right? That's our dream. That's what we're aspiring to. But doing that with ourselves, to start with, and then collectively allowing this to ripple out, so that we have more community, we have more people we can do this with, we have more who are interested in this, sitting with ourselves, and having ritual, having practice, having things that really connect us in with gratitude, with love, with our hearts, with our wombs, making these a daily thing. Yeah, and doing more like this, of just like connecting and talking about how we do this, and how we connect with each other in ways, and share information in ways that spread it.
You can share as much or as little as you'd like here. How has your journey been in your own process of working with uncovering your shadows, your own inner work? Like, can we give voice to some of these more private practices without you necessarily having to divulge any specific details? Can you tell us a little bit more about what parts were easy, or what parts you felt like you were stuck in for a while, just so people have an idea that it's not an overnight process?
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So for me, there was a long process of really standing on my own and bringing my voice forward. And it was so interesting how I found myself confronted with a lot of adversity and diversity, and things that didn't resonate with me, and how that really helped me find more of who I was, but how I felt so defeated in that process of like feeling like I kept coming into things that were no's. And in reality, I was really gaining so much more of my yeses in that process, and who I was and what I wanted to bring forward. And being met with that really helped me find this foundation within myself. I would say that was my my biggest thing and really coming out into being my own practitioner and having my own private practice. And it really just helped in finding my voice. My shadow journey was a lot of my younger years, really stepping into who I was, and once more, like just really seeing who I wasn't, and having a lot of like my shadow energies run the show, and how that was so destructive for me, and for my relationships and for my growth as a person, and really getting in touch with a lot of my light aspects and weaving those together. So yeah, a lot of my shadow journey was in my younger years. I was involved in, I would just party and go out a lot, and I would like to have a lot of fun, and I was careless with my sexual energy, and these were things that I really had to learn weren't in service of me, weren't in service of my reputation, weren't in service of my energy as a person. I really had to like reel things in. And once I did that, I did a lot of work within my lineage. I did a lot of work within my womb. I did a lot of work with, oh, how do I see these energies reflected outside of me? And then I did a lot of just like clearing, like what in that going back to in that talk about self-love is like, okay, what were the things I were participating in that weren't in service? And I did a lot of sweeping of the energies that weren't in service of my highest good, my health, my vitality. And to me, that was really the deep shadow work there. So I would say a lot of that self love work is interwoven in this shadow work. And then I went into, I've had really like transformative and huge catalyst in romantic relationships. I had felt a lot of those, the twin flame energies in my romantic relationships that were really asking me to step up, step through, transform, work on unconditional love, open my heart, and yeah, had some really wild rides in that area that helped me hone in on more of stepping up into my work with women. Yeah.
So one of the words that I picked out there and what you said was lineage. So for our listeners who aren't familiar with ancestral healing, I'd like to give them a little preview of what that work is. What is it to work with your ancestors to heal your lineage, and why might this work be good for women in particular?
Yeah. So we carry the energies of those before us, of those in our family, of those in our ancestry, of those in our lineage. And in particular, we carry these energies in our womb space. So it's really the process of realizing, what energies are really being called towards you, and are you working with at this point in time, and are rooted in your lineage, in your family. And in a sense, a level of karma, a level of what is being handed down to you to really heal and work through. And this is some more serious karmic deep shadow work of really going into the womb, going into the things that aren't in service, going into these patterns that are being repeated, and that you choose to stop and end with you. So really powerful work, especially when we talk about the new earth paradigm, because we have to end some of these repeated patterns, these lineage traits, these traumas, these things that are carried over and over and over, and was really spoken about a lot in my mental health training too. Intergenerational trauma, how traumas are passed down, how things are handed down, and how it is a choice for us to really say no in that moment. It ends with me. I'm not carrying this into the life of my children and the continuation of my lineage.
Mhm. And then one cool thing I love about ancestral healing is that when we heal now in the present, we're also helping heal and release our ancestors. So little disclaimer here for all listeners, it's very important to work with well ancestors to call on their help. So if you are new to this journey, I would really recommend getting a guide, getting someone who just has more experience with you, working with ancestors who can guide you through the process, whether that's even a guided meditation. But we don't just call any spirits in, just like to throw that out there. We want to work with the well ones or have their support and healing our lines. So how have guides, not necessarily spirit guides, Lauren, but just mentors, how have mentors and teachers really shaped your ability to be who you are? I see us entering a new point in culture and community where we value these different types of relationships more and more. So how have mentors and guides shaped you?
Wow. In so many ways, I took an interest in more of this spiritual realm. It really opened up in my travel. I've traveled a lot, and I resonated with just different lands and different cultures and their spirituality, and that's where it really started for me. And then I began to seek mentors and guides, or women in particular who were already working in more of the realm of spirit and walking with spirit and living their soul path and bringing and knowing their purpose, right? And that really resonated with me. And I found the women that resonated with me that held such strong position in their spirituality and walking their path and walking their purpose. And this is how my mentorship started. Was I would see women doing this, and I was feeling really drawn to them. And they would teach me a lot about these practices. And yeah, it was just kind of a trickle down effect. And then I really felt myself stepping deeper into my path, into deeper relationships with my guides, and seeing what was being asked of me then from that moment to bring forward, and what was wanted for me.
So I heard you say there, walk with spirit. What does it mean to you to live a life where you walk with spirit?
Yeah, so for me, I really pay attention to all of the subtle energies and all of the things that are being shown to me. My life is constantly, like my day to day life is constantly being bombarded with signs and synchronicities and messages and direction. So for me, walking with spirit is being open and noticing and paying attention to those little signs, those little synchronicities, those little things that spirit is really communicating with me on, and following it and walking with it and letting it bring me into my next step in life and further down my path of purpose.
I love those moments of synchronicity where life just seems to be showing you that you've slowed down enough to pay attention to the signs and be on track. What are some signs that people might be able to look out for that tells you, maybe it wouldn't be the same signs for them, but what type of signs do you notice that help you know that you are in the flow, in resonance?
Totally. Yeah. So the first thing I always hear with clients that I'm starting to work with is number sequences. So that's always like the first thing someone will say to me is, I'm starting to notice really interesting number sequences in my life. And that's usually like the first step, is like, okay, so this is a level of communication that you're receiving. And then from there, for me, what I really notice on a daily basis is words, situations, like things that people say to me. It really comes in any form. But for me, what will happen is I will look at something and I'll get this feeling inside of me of like, you need to pay attention to this. So it will be more than just like a glance, but they'll be like they'll be bringing my attention to some word or phrase or color or yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's just a constant communication about what is coming, what to be aware of, what direction to head in.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess it's really spoken to me in a bunch of ways: animal medicine, flower medicine, nature medicine, like yeah, just coming through hot in all different ways.
Oh, so animals. What's your relationship like with animals? Like physical animals, spirit animals, all the
Yeah,
animals.
yeah, all the animals. So I live up in the mountains. So I'm frequently visited by animals, and we'll see them out the window. We'll see them when I'm driving. And like over the summer, I was getting a lot of eagle medicine. Like bald eagles continue to follow me, and I think this was really just a representation of the freedom that is coming through right now for a lot of people. And what I speak of about that like deep alchemical transformation to step out of the old and into the new. And so things like that, little animal medicine for me, or even to just show me like what is collectively going on in that point in time so I can share it with my clients.
Hmm. Oh, I love that double layer of the collective and also the individual. I feel like giving a little shout out to the turkey vulture and sharing a story. So I've been visiting my mother in Texas, and there's lots of turkey vultures here. But as some of you may know, bird identification isn't always the easiest, and it takes some time to really come into it. So on Christmas Day, I went out for some rosemary in the garden, and I had been seeing turkey vultures everywhere. At this time, I thought they were hawks. So it's like, I've been seeing all these hawks. It's so magical. And so I go out to get some rosemary, and this turkey vulture comes, and it's flying overhead, maybe like 40 feet above me. A second one comes, and then a third one comes, and then a fourth one comes. And so they're all flying in this circle above me. I'm like, hi, friends. Like, oh, it's so good to see you. It's so magical. It's like a sunny 70-degree day, Texas Christmas. I'm just having this really powerful moment where I'm standing out in the yard 5 more minutes than I might have otherwise. But then lo and behold, my mom's cousin and her husband drive by the backyard because I saw some cars out front in times of COVID. So people don't just stop by unannounced. They were just driving in the neighborhood, and they wanted to see if maybe anyone was in the backyard. And I wouldn't have been if I didn't have this experience with the turkey vulture. Just stand out there and appreciate them for a little bit longer. And I had to check myself here because the story initially was that, 4 hawks came above me and they were circling. And then I noticed when I realized that they were turkey vultures that I didn't feel like the story was as magical. Like, so in the moment, it felt so magical. I felt so aligned, so connected to these creatures. I was like totally sure that they were my friends. So I had to really investigate, like, why is this suddenly less awesome to me? Because it's not 4 hawks, it's 4 turkey vultures. So I did some digging into their symbolism as animals. Turkey vulture, also called the turkey buzzard, one of its Latin name translates to golden purifier. So like the condor, like other vultures, these are animals that do not kill, but help to purify the landscape. If they did not exist, these decomposers, then we would be living in a sea of rot. So honoring every creature and their use. And what's really cool about turkey vulture medicine too is, so they don't have a lot of defenses. Their feet are more, you guys didn't know you were going to get a dose of info about the turkey vulture, but here it is. So their feet have evolved for walking because they need to walk on the ground so they can move through and feast on what's there. So they don't really have attack claws like some other birds of prey. So their defense mechanism is actually to regurgitate their stomach acids and the food they've eaten onto someone. So we have to be careful when we're learning Lauren's face. We have to be careful. This is the medicine representation of if we haven't fully digested what we're trying to process, sometimes we can regurgitate it onto someone else. So there's always all sorts of lessons here. And one thing I love about turkey vultures too is that they are a communal animal. So they call on the other vultures to come. If there's like a cow that died or something like that, you know, there's been records of vultures calling on other vultures up to 30 miles around. So like letting everyone know, hey, it's a party, it's a feast, let's do our duty and help the cycle of life continue on. So yes, that's my little turkey vulture virtue tangent. So honoring all of our friends, all of our teachers.
Yeah. Yeah, and how deep it really goes and how much you can look into their habits and their behaviors and how it can be associated back to the medicine you need at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Yeah, and I used to really be adverse to like snakes and spiders, and I definitely felt like I needed to do some work around feeling adverse to any animal, right? Because I feel like that is a lot of that connection with Mother Earth. When you spoke about the virtues of this channel, right, is being open to all of the medicine that animals are here to bring us.
What does it mean to you to live in right relationship with the earth?
To listen to her, to appreciate her beauty, to ask before you take, to give back, to honor, to, I have this spot that I always visit in the woods, and I know you do too, because you sent it to, or the one at the location you're at, there's a spot you go to, and you sent it to me recently. And I always have that at every place that I live, somewhere near me that it feels really sacred. And I'll go there and I'll honor the snow or the trees in the area, and I'll make offerings and to really give back to her for all that she does for us, and to just see that and to have respect for that. I feel like that's been long forgotten, and because we are so disconnected from the earth, we don't even necessarily see the things that we receive as being from her, because they come out a kitchen window or from the grocery store, right? And just to really remember who is giving that to us, and show respect to that.
Thank you, Mama Gaia. Yeah. Mama, Mother Earth.
Right? Yes. Thank you for everything.
And then healthy relationships in general, right? So we've talked a little bit about self-love, self-care. So that first relationship with yourself and relationship with the earth, just can you elaborate more on what does it mean to relate with others?
Yeah, totally. And I find a lot of the work that we do with ourselves can help in the way that we relate with others. So this is why I like the progression that you took of like, okay, let's start with the relationship with self and then move into the relationship with others. And to me, a healthy relationship with others really looks like having open communication, feeling free to express yourself, and being able to set boundaries and feeling respected. I think those are all really important key markers to a healthy relationship. Feeling really honored, heard, and seen and respected in that whole process.
So relationships are sure to bring up some triggers, right? They're catalysts to learn new things about ourselves. So what would you recommend for our listeners, practices when you are feeling triggered in a relationship, when something comes up? What advice would you give them?
Yeah. So a trigger is usually a point in time in which you need to really look at yourself and do the work within yourself to see what is triggering you, why it's bringing up such a heated reaction and response within you. Because we always want to be able to, since communication is so important in relationship, we want to be able to communicate in a way that's not too hot, too heated, too triggered, right? So I would say that it's important to spend time with yourself, do a little bit of your inner work, and then communicate from a place that is feeling that where you are able to feel strong in what you are communicating, and not in a place of like heat and too much trigger.
Mhm.
So really sitting with yourself and seeing it as an opportunity to sit with yourself and see an aspect of yourself that is um, triggered.
And it's a great opportunity to love yourself in all your expressions.
Right, very much so. Yeah, it can be really hard to not love yourself through a trigger. It's so easy to for us to throw out away the parts of ourselves that aren't perfect or aren't healed and whole yet. And it's just really important to remember that this is a lifelong process. This is a lifelong evolution. And, you know, if you are in that right relationship, you can really bring the trigger to that friend, to that partner, and say, hey, I'm feeling really triggered in this moment, and this is what's going on for me. And even to be able to speak about it in that way, in a way out of outside yourself about what it's bringing up within you.
In your work with clients, what kind of space do you hold? How do you create a container that feels really safe for people to show up?
Yeah. So going back to what I said in the beginning, I do feel like I tend to come at sessions in a really motherly and nurturing way. I like to hold a lot of feminine space for people because I do feel like this is such an energy that is missing in our healing, but so important. Like I said, a lot of people will throw out like the ugly parts and aspects of themselves. And how I always look at this is, okay, so there's a part of you that's in an essence crying out for attention. So if there was a baby or a child in the room with you that was crying out for attention, would you just tell it to shut up and leave? I mean, unfortunately, maybe some people would, but what we are what we are really needing to do and needing to learn how to do in that moment is to take that part of ourselves and listen to it and hold it and care for it and love it. And this is how we take our splits and take these parts that aren't so favorable and bring them into a whole and bring them into healthy and healed version and aspect. And I just really feel like the mother is missing in our healing in that way.
Mm-hmm. The mother. So this helped me understand what was going on with society when I've read what is that book called? Western Mind, Eastern Body by Judith Anadea. I may be mispronouncing her name. It's a chakra book, and in the chapter on the heart chakra, which the heart is the meeting place for the sky and the earth, she talks about how we're all the children of cosmic divorce.
Ooh.
About how we've inherited, at least in Western culture, this idea of God being male, God being up in the sky outside of Earth, and it's like mom has like they've gotten a divorce and we don't talk about mom anymore.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Anyway, that's something that came through when you were talking about the importance of that mother quality in spirituality. And there's a lot with the resurgence of the divine feminine, and that is not to say that the masculine is not needed. So how
No.
would you, yes, can you elaborate on
Yes.
that?
Yes. Thank you. Not at all. So needed. So very important. And a lot of my work, a lot of like the deeper reasoning behind my work is for me to really bring the masculine and the feminine together to really heal the family and to really bring in that sacred union. I do very much believe in family, and it is a big thing for me. So yeah, no, our masculine energy is so very important. It's just an energy that I feel that we have been, still needs work around, but we have been very comfortable with as a society and as a whole, and have really forgotten in many ways about the feminine essence, right? And even when we look throughout history, and we look throughout religions and culture, there used to be a point in time when the feminine was honored, and this has really been taken out of religions and stories over time. And so it is really about that merge, and that bringing back of like how we both need each other so bad, right? And the masculine energy is extremely important in holding a lot of that heat, that fire, that space holder, and that motivation, that drive, that will. Like, yes, so very important in this whole, but just needs balance, right?
And what would you say to our listeners who identify as men? I know you work mostly with women, but if they're feeling, how can they integrate all this divine feminine magic that's coming through with their inner masculine? What advice would you have for the men folk out there?
Yes, yeah, I would say getting in touch with your inner waters. And what I mean by that is getting in touch with your emotional body. I think this is really repressed for the masculine, and they don't necessarily feel comfortable stepping into this space or speaking from this space. So getting in touch with what their emotional bodies are telling them, and speaking to it, speaking to their intuition, speaking to their inner emotional spaces, and getting more comfortable with that, and allowing themselves to be more in touch with that space, because I feel like this has been something that has been repressed for them, and they feel the need to carry everything and hold everything, and not release it and let it go and speak to it and honor it, right? And the women are so comfortable with releasing. We do it on a monthly basis, on a daily basis, right? But I don't think it's something that men who aren't in touch with their feminine are comfortable with or know how to do, right? So yeah, just letting their waters flow, letting their emotions be there and be real, and learning how to speak to them in a way that is healthy, handle them in a way that's healthy.
I so love thinking of the emotions as the waters flowing throughout the body. It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
I just want to give you the space for anything else coming through that we haven't talked about, any advice, any teachings that feel like they want to be shared with our listeners.
Yeah, so just in the aspect and the process of creation, I see it as, I want to speak to that as we are in such a pivotal point, within COVID, within just a lot of rioting and uprising from people, is to really get in touch with the earth at this point in time, and ask what she needs, ask what is most in service of her, and how to be in service of her, and to really create that relationship with her. I see that as being really important for helping us push through and push forward.
Beautiful. And so,
Yeah.
Lauren, we are right here in January 2021, but some of our listeners may be listening to this in the far off future. And we're so glad you found us. We're traveling through time. So how would someone connect with you? What projects do you have? Are there any links you can give us about how we would learn more about your offerings?
Yeah. So my website is divinereality.net. My email is lauren@divinereality.net. And my website, you can really see all of my offerings and all of my services and everything that I'm bringing forward. I have my Awakening to Your Divine Feminine program. I do this with a group of women for 8 weeks online, and then you receive a care package, and that is starting on February 11th of 2021, under the new moon. And I offer this about 2 to 3 times a year. So just checking in with my website to see when my next offering of this program is. And then I do individual services too.
Beautiful. And what would some of the women who've been through your course, what have they said about it? What kind of transformations have they undergone?
Yeah, so I actually just received the most beautiful testimony video. So grateful for that. But what she expressed in a lot of her and a lot of what changed for her and through that teaching is that she really learned how to care for herself. She really learned how to honor her body, and how this created such a deep shift in a lot of her relationships around her, and her even her personal intimate relationship. And then she spoke to also like some deeper layers and levels of lineage healing, and stepping outside of certain patterns that she found herself in, that she felt to be lineage related, and stepping into more of a place of like honoring self-love and self-care. And it's the teachings in this is to help women awaken their heart space and awaken their womb space, and to be and to live in more of an embodied state, because I find it's just so important that we are living and hearing the messages and the truths within our body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a lot of these spaces are really dumbed down for most women. Some women tell me that they really only feel from they don't feel anything from their hips down. And when I ask about like sensuality, feeling turned on, some women even report not feeling hunger pains, right? So it's really about, just dropping women back into their body and turning these spaces back on that have unfortunately been turned off from trauma, neglect, not feeding their bodies right, not moving their bodies, not knowing how to really have these spaces turned on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ah, so much juiciness in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, flowing waters.
Right, totally. And there's a little bit about the female orgasm and waters flowing and that in the program too.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, beautiful listeners, we are going to close up the show here in gratitude. So thank you so much to Lauren Haug for joining me today on this show. And I will post all of those links down below in the show notes so that you have easy access to them. Yes, thank you, Lauren. I really appreciate your time and you choosing to be here and spread your wisdom, your knowledge, your teachings, your essence, your magical glow with this community. Any closing words before we end the show?
Just thank you for having me. I love to be talking about this with you because I know we share a lot of passion and love for this, and the same things, and do have similar teachings and work with similar healing modalities. And you were my Reiki teacher, so it's just such an honor to be here with you and to dive into these waters and these realms with you. So
thank you, Lauren.
Yeah.
A big thank you to Lauren Haug for that amazing conversation. And of course to you, sweet listener. Thanks for tuning in and sticking around until the end. May your day be filled with whatever you most need to receive, both the lessons and the blessings. This is Visions of Earth Rising, and I am Juniper Reina Zarea, your hostess. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please like, comment, share, subscribe. If you are listening on audio, know that all episodes are available in video format at youtube.com/Visions of Earth Rising. I'd love to hear from you and what you'd like to see on future episodes. Thank you. From my heart to yours, aloha.